Hey there, darlings. Welcome back to Roots Refuge Farm.
I thought you were talking to me. I was like, why are you calling me darlings?
You're like, there's only one of me. Oh, we just had a little impromptu coffee date outside. I'm gonna take time like that where we can get it. So our dates are often walks or conversations sitting out in the golden hour. So we're heading out to the barn, and I wanted to grab the camera. We're about to do something that I identified the other day needed to be done. I had to get some stuff, and I want to talk to you a little bit about my goats. Look at those girls just checking us out. Jersey cows are so cool. The way that their markings change from season to season. When they get their winter coats, they look completely different, and year to year they'll be a little bit different. So like Helen has in the past, like her entire face all the way up to the top gets black during the winter, and now Freya's got a little more black, but it's like just around her eyes. Hey girl. Angel, hello. Don't bite my apron.
I think she smells the gumbo. She's like, can I get a little taste?
Y'all, I cooked gumbo today. I was having a craving. It was so good. I actually shot a video that you're not going to see. I'm actually going to get the stuff and make another pot of gumbo and shoot a video. I messed up. I can cut things as I go while I'm cooking. Even something like gumbo, where you have to pretty much stir the roux consistently for an hour. But I cannot cut things, stir consistently, and shoot a video. So I shot the whole front of the video and realized that I was not gonna be able to finish it. So I'm gonna have to do a little more prep work to do that. I wasn't willing to ruin my gumbo to make a video, because I love y'all, but listen, I draw the line, okay? That gumbo hit the spot. Hey Toby.
Sup?
What's up? How are you?
Good.
Y'all, Toby is in a world of hurt today because he has new braces on his teeth.
Yeah, I'm just eating the gumbo gravy. Without the sausages and stuff.
He came home and said, Mom, I hardly ate my lunch, so he got a bowl of that gumbo that I made.
It was good.
Yeah. Yep. Toby was remarking on Wit looking like a big dude. Oh no, Wit, we don't make that kind of video. So I was out here the other day, and I routinely check my goats' FOMACHA scores, which is that you pull their eyelid down and you look at the color on the inside of their eyelid. I'm going to show you all this. And I noticed that Winnie was looking just a little bit pale, which is a sign of heavy parasite load. It has to do with their iron levels and all of that, but that's kind of how I monitor. I do not deworm my goats on any sort of schedule. These goats that I purchased have been chemically dewormed in the past. This is my personal stance on farming stuff. I love the organic way. I am strictly an organic gardener. I do not use any sort of chemical pesticides or fertilizers. It's just a line I've drawn. I don't go off of that. With my animals, I'm not strictly organic in how I do things with them. I would say that we are very firmly in natural practices. So
like for our feed, like we use non-GMO feed, but we don't use organic.
Right, because the organic is honestly, it's just exorbitant. Like the sources that we have available to us, it doesn't make financial sense for us to do that.
We just probably couldn't even afford it. It's
right.
Just, organic animal feed is so expensive.
And my thing is, I would rather try to raise the majority of our things, like we raise the lambs, we're raising the beef, that's where we're gearing into for that to be the majority of our meat sources, and we grow them on grass entirely. So that way it is organic, you know, like we're not spraying anything chemical on our pastures. We buy hay that's unsprayed, we cut hay that's unsprayed next door. So that way we're able to grow organic meat without having to pay all those costs. Like I wouldn't want to raise hogs or even birds on purely organic meat or feed. It's just it doesn't make financial sense for us. But another thing you have to consider on whether you're going to go the organic route is whether you're going to use like chemical medicines and treatments for your animals for things like deworming or if they get sick. And while, like for instance, I don't condone heavy Maya,
What? What?
the poop has dung beetles. It's got dung beetle holes in it.
Congratulations.
This one doesn't really have much.
What happened?
The poop has dung beetles.
Is that good?
It's very good. This one doesn't have a whole lot either. That one over there.
Let me see the dung beetle.
So dung beetle holes are a sign that, I mean, it's a sign that it's working organically.
A sign from the Lord.
It actually is a sign that it's working organically. Dung beetles are something that don't exist whenever you're spraying a lot of chemicals on your pasture. We didn't have dung beetles for the longest time because these pastures were sprayed when we came. So you start seeing holes in the poop. It means the dung beetles are back and they're working, and that is awesome. That's awesome.
You do get excited about poop a lot.
Yes.
What other instance have I gotten excited about?
Oh my
poop?
gosh, we got so much alpaca poop. We can use this for the garden.
I'm not even having to listen. This is the point of having sons. So that way they can point out stuff and it saves me all the energy.
Like, look at these piles. It's gonna make our field so good.
Y'all are roasting me.
I mean, it's a good roasting. You know, poop obsession.
Y'all don't make it weird. We're just saying you like dookie. Oh, Lord help me. Back to what I was saying. When it comes to treatment, like I said, I don't condone like heavy antibiotic use. I mean, honestly, my own personal life, my own health issues, a lot of the issues I have is the overuse of antibiotics when I was younger. Just following the doctor's orders, you know. And with the animals, I don't do anything like that routine. I don't do anything like that as a first resort. However, I am personally of the mind that I don't want my animals to suffer. I will try to use natural practices and organic things. I try to overall just support them in a way that their nutrition is good and that their overall care is good, which eliminates a lot of sickness just right off the bat. But if it comes down to it, I will use like conventional medicine with my animals if it is a situation that's life or death. And I also take into consideration what I'm dealing with. So like Helen here started her life, she was at a commercial dairy, like she's one that was sold from a commercial dairy. Freya was a 4-H cow, was kept conventionally. These goats were kept conventionally. And so like when you have an animal, like for a goat for instance, if this animal's been raised on conventional practices as far as deworming, they can be dependent on those chemicals. Now, I specifically bought my sheep because we were raising them for meat. I bought animals that had been holistically managed. So I waited and passed on a lot of opportunities to buy sheep until I found two different people. My sheep came from two different people that managed things organically. They get selenium as a supplement. They get minerals and stuff like that. But I, to this point, have not had to do any sort of chemical deworming on those sheep. We do rotationally graze, which helps with parasite load. The reason why I think my goatee girls are having a little bit of a parasite load now is because we had a hay feeder in here that was a ring, and we let the goats out, and they took to, when the hay was low, they were laying in the ring. Jeremiah came one day and ended their little hay ring party and said no.
That was just so dumb.
Because what was happening?
They were peeing and pooping on the hay, and then the cows were eating through that.
And the goats were eating it too.
Yeah, it's just not good.
That's not good. So unlike alpacas, which poop communally, cows pretty much poop where they stand.
Oh, yes. Yeah, and pee.
And pee where they
Doesn't matter
stand.
if their child's underneath it or...
Yeah, cows just let it rip.
The cow stanchion. I mean, it really just... If the feeling hits, rip.
Goats also just, they are very, there's no discrepancy in where they are going to poop and pee. And so they were getting in the hay ring, they were pooping and peeing in the hay ring, which was making the hay dirty. And that is a really great way to get parasite issues in your animal. So before I even noticed that the parasite load was a little on the higher side, that they were looking a little pale in their eyelids. Maya had already, like, that morning come out and switched this to the different hay holder so that they could no longer do that. But I want to show you guys today what to look for, and I'm going to tell you what I'm doing about it. There are organic ways that you can support your animal systems and help deworm. I'm doing some of those, but because I'm already seeing pale eyelids, I would rather go ahead and use a chemical dewormer. This will be my first time to deworm these goats. I got them on March 1st. I've had them several months. I've never dewormed them. I've never had to. They have been chemically dewormed in the past, but the guy I got them from, he didn't do it necessarily on schedule. My opinion of chemical dewormers is I use them when they're necessary, but I don't want to like automatically deworm everybody every 3 months, because that's a really good way to build resistance and for the parasites to have resistance. I only give it to them when they need it. For natural anti-parasitic support, I've got a lot of pumpkins. I grew a lot of pumpkins this year, way more than we could possibly eat, but I have them on hand. They store really well, and I will... Bosco wants treats. He's being demanding. Pumpkins are anti-parasitic, and they're really great to feed to your animals. So I am going to give my goats a pumpkin, probably give them a pumpkin a week or something like that over the next handful of weeks. It'll just be good support for them. I probably won't have to do anything other than bust it open for them. If they weren't showing a lot of interest in it, what I could do would be to chop it up and make it a little more enticing. I don't think I'll have an issue with it. I don't know. Goats, I know everybody thinks they'll eat everything, including tin cans, but it's not the case. My goats are particularly picky. Another thing that I'm doing, I'm going to make sure I'm saying this right. I got at a local feed store pelleted lespedeza, which is also called Chinese bush clover. It is just a plant that grows, just like a feed plant. People use it for forage, but it is tested and shows that it is great for anti-parasite support in sheep and in goats. So I am going to start putting some of that out. I'm going to check all the girls again today just to see where we're at, and I'm going to give everybody who I feel like needs it ivermectin. When it comes to chemical dewormers, I learned what I have, I guess, adopted as my practice on a Facebook group that I was a part of when I lived in Arkansas when I first started with goats, 10 years ago. There are multiple options that you can give. It's so regional that I hesitate to say this is what you should do, because parasites are very different in different regions. I actually had to learn kind of a different way of doing things when I moved to South Carolina versus when I was in Arkansas. Is a lot of times I have used like Quest Plus, which is actually a horse dewormer. You do not dose it using the actual dewormer thing because it's not packaged for goats. I would just look it up whenever I needed to and just follow the online charts for goat usage, but you do not want to give that particular dewormer to goats who are bred. And my girls have been in with the buck for the last 2 months, so it is very likely that at this point they're bred. We hope that they are, and ivermectin is a dewormer that is safe to give to bred goats. Unfortunately, if you use some chemical dewormers that are not safe for pregnancy while your goats are pregnant, it can cause some serious birth defects. I've never personally had it happen to me because I've always been very cautious about this, but having been in a lot of goat groups and been keeping goats for a lot of years, I've actually seen some pretty gnarly stuff that is really sad. I really heavily caution to do your research before you dose your animals with anything at all. Just because Joe Schmo next door told you to do it, do not put a medicine in your animal's mouth if you're going the chemical route without, at the very least, doing a solid 10 minutes of Google research first. Like, there's enough resources out there to tell you, and I don't believe anything until I see it confirmed from multiple different sources, preferably very reliable sources. Thoughts on that? You're standing here like you got something good to say.
Well, I was thinking, if there's a guy named Joe Schmo out there, why is he's always like, well, I'm always being singled out for giving advice. I stick to myself. I don't really give advice. But everyone's saying that Joe Schmo is giving all this advice. And that if he doesn't, and then we're singling out Joe Schmo. That's actually where my brain went.
Okay.
I mean, you know everything about this as far as, like, I've just kind of, like, learned everything I learned from you. So, like, I don't have anything else to contribute.
Well, I learned it all from the internet because...
That's true. Whenever you've asked me to like deworm and stuff, I always just... Like if I'm giving ivermectin or if I'm giving Quest, like there's a lot of resources out there as far as like dosage and poundage and
yeah. I mean, it's pretty easy to look things up,
yes,
and honestly, I don't know it off the top of my head. I always look things up. I do have some files saved on my laptop that have all of the dosing and stuff like that, like as a backup source, so that if I couldn't access the internet.
Correctly, which we'll double check. I think it's like 1 cc.
If you look up ivermec for goats dosage, the first thing that comes up is Cornell University's dewormer chart for goats, and it lists the different dewormers and shows you by pounds how much to give. You can Google this and you can find dosages. I actually did find the file that I'd saved on my phone. I've had this file saved that I got out of a group that someone shared. It's been a lot of years ago. This is what I typically reference. I will try to put a link to this. I'll see if I can upload it as like a shareable document where you can access it and save it. Just for the sake of like covering the bases, like I cannot tell you exactly where this came from. I don't know who originally wrote it. It's up to you whether you want to trust it. I have referenced this many times for multiple medicines, and it's always been good for my goats, but you can always cross-reference to online, websites and different things. There are a lot of extension offices that share this stuff. But I'll see if this is something that I can share. What I'm finding is that ivermectin 1.87% paste, which this is made for horses. With a horse being, 1,000-pound animal, you would give them this entire thing. Or they have like the dosage on here that you would use for it has for 250 pounds, give them this much. For 500 pounds. Obviously, even the lowest one, we don't have a 250-pound goat. So we have a separate little syringe that we're going to use. And for ivermectin paste, it states that it is actually 1 cc per 100 pounds orally. So for our goats, they're about 100 pounds, so we're going to go 1 cc each, which is a very small amount. Ivermectin paste, in a lot of animals, I will say I know that a lot of areas, there are parasites that are very resistant to it. I cannot really stress enough to you, I really heavily disagree for overuse of dewormers and very routine, unnecessary use of dewormers. And in my experience, even if you have goats that came from a chemically dependent herd where they were regularly dewormed, with good practices like noticing that they're peeing and pooping on their hay and changing it, keeping the bedding clean, making sure their pen is not staying wet, different things like that, you can actually begin stretching that out and get it to the point where they're able to have a little more natural resistance. And then of course supporting them with these organic options like we're doing the Lespedeza and the pumpkins, that's going to help. All right.
How much are we doing?
1 cc per 100 pounds, so 1 cc per goat. So he just took that lid off and is squeezing it in there to measure.
There's a little lip. It's supposed to hold the plunger in. Be careful, because you apply too much pressure and all your ivermectin goes squirting out the drain. Ask me how I know. Perfection. 1 cc exactly. I'm just good.
And so humble too. You want to put that in your pocket? So humble. All right, Toby's bringing some straw to put some fresh bedding down in their pen. Oh look, another straw spreader. You want to help?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go grab some straw down here on the end.
Where will I take it?
All the way down there to that stall. We're gonna give them a nice thick layer of clean bedding. The advisor's here to make sure everyone is working efficiently.
Not like this.
Another boy. Golly, that steer's gotten big. I keep thinking he's Bo, and then I see Bo, and then I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah, it's all straight grass.
I know.
A little less than 2.
Yep.
It's pretty good.
Bo's been hanging out over here by the fence. Somebody must be.
It's Helen.
It's Helen. Her milkshake brings the boy to the yard.
I don't think he's after her milk.
Alright, so I'm gonna see, I might need a hand for this. I want to show you guys. You did very well. Thank you so much for your help. I appreciate your work.
Spider's gonna make a big spider web.
Yeah. So I suggest, if you're going to be keeping goats, that you print out, if you're unfamiliar with this, what's called a FOMACHA scorecard. This is very easily accessible, again, like one quick Google search. And it will show you the different levels of color for what the inside of your goat's eyelids look like. And essentially, when they have a high parasite load, they become anemic. And that is evidenced in that coloring inside their eyelid, whether they're anemic or not. And so what we're looking for, like red insides is very healthy where there's no anemia. Like pink red is still normal, kind of pinkish. You're like, okay, if it's like a pale pink, that's kind of what I was seeing the other day. White is like a problem. If they are white inside, that means your goat is severely anemic and has likely a very high parasite load. So,
I mean, honestly, if they were white and showing other signs like runny poop or things like that.
Or yeah, hunched over, like.
We probably would skip ivermectin and go to
something harder, but the thing is they're pregnant, and so really ideally you just don't want to get to that
like
point.
Things get, but there's severities of like, okay, so.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like if it's a life or death situation, I hit them hard. Yeah.
Sidectin essentially is what it is.
Right, and
it's
that.
probably the hardest hitting one.
Come here. Okay. Not the best outfit for this, but come in here.
So when the gate opens, you gotta hold on for at least 8 seconds.
You're not being the best cameraman, right?
And go.
Come on. Alright, she's actually quite pale too. See, that's like a really light pink. That means that we need a treat. See now?
Okay, yeah.
See how light pink that is?
Right.
That's not
it's easy to see in person.
That's how she looked the other day too. I'll go ahead and look at her just to be sure, but I assume she's the same. I'm pretty sure that this is because we had all the wet weather with the hurricane. And then that whole hay bale situation, because they have been very red. Like the whole time I've had them and I've checked them, they've never looked like this. And I think that the combination of all the rain that we had the hurricane week with the hay bale thing, I think that probably took the downward spiral. Plus they haven't been dewormed since I had them. Yeah, she's the same.
Okay.
So I bought the Lespedeza. I just got a 50-pound bag of pelleted. It's kind of like how pelleted alfalfa is pellets of a grass. It's the same thing. And it was $40 or something, so it wasn't cheap. And I'm going to go ahead and give it to them as well as the chemical dewormer. There's a big part of me that would really love to be able to just give the Lespedeza and the pumpkin and wait a little bit to see how much it improves this. However, unfortunately, with them being in the state that they're in, I don't feel super comfortable with that because I don't want to push their parasite load to where I do have to do some like hard-hitting chemical thing with them being pregnant. So it's not really I could maybe do that, but I would be taking a risk and I'm just not willing to take that risk with my goats. So I'm giving them the Lespedeza, I'm going to give them a pumpkin, and I'm going to give them the Ivermec, just because at this point I feel like that is the lowest risk way forward. Alright. So I'm probably going to give them a little bit of this every day, though. It's just grass, so it's, I don't have to worry about it being too much. Alright, shall we dose? With goats, they're ruminants. They regularly chew up, spit up their cud, so you really need to get any medicine you give them all the way down in their throat to make sure that it doesn't just come right back up. It helps if you are trying to dose them to give them something at the same time that they want to eat, because then they're going to be swallowing down more. So even if she does like spit that medicine back up, she's going to take a bite, chew it, and then swallow it back down. So a lot of the signs that your goat has parasite overload don't come until you have a very serious problem on your hand. So checking FOMACHA scores regularly is kind of a way to head off and keep it under control, especially if you are choosing not to do a routine deworming schedule. There you go, girls. Weight loss is another really obvious sign if they start looking really sunken in and skinny. which is also not a problem with my girls right now. So the last thing, I'm talking about organic options and conventional options and all of that stuff. If you look up organic anti-parasite support for goats, there are herbs you can give them that are definitely supportive of their systems and help with parasite load. There are things you can give them like pumpkin, like lespedeza, like all these different things. And if you give them enough of those regularly enough, and you have either bred for parasite resistance or you purchase stock that was parasite resistant, you can organically support goats to be without parasites. I know many people who have done it. When these girls have babies, I will not automatically give those babies anti-parasitic, chemical medicines. I will try to gear my herd into that direction. When it comes to purchasing herbal herbal dewormers, where you're buying bags of mixed herbs from people, I love the sentiment, and if you have a couple of little Nigerian dwarfs as your backyard pets, I think you could totally do that. For the full-size goats, especially if your herd is very large, mine's not, but if let's say you have 12 goats, that's going to be astronomically expensive. You could go the route of looking at something like Frontier or, Mountain Rose Botanicals, or some sort of supplier where you can buy bulk herbs by the pound, as is with any herbal treatments, especially for this animal that weighs 120 pounds. You're going to have to give them a lot of something. And in my mind, that's not any more sustainable than buying the tube of Ivermectin at the store. Well, granted, it may be ideal because of the organic nature of it and all of that stuff, but I'm trying to do the best I can in a way that also makes financial sense and also makes sense for our time, because that is also a resource that's limited. All right, guys. Well, thanks for hanging out with us today.
We bless you. Until next time.
We bless you. Until next time.